So John had just seen the temple destroyed and realized that God's judgment was coming on the Jewish people for all the years that they rejected the prophets that were sent to him. And then Jesus says, but it's not only coming on the temple, there are 7 churches. And again, the number 7 just means the complete amount. When we see the number 7 in the book of Revelation or anywhere in the Bible, it just means all of them. So he says, and these 7 churches represent the church universal, just the universal church. Warning them, if you don't get it together, you'll have the same sort of judgment that happened on the temple. But now he's going to move to the judgment that is coming in the end times. And that's what we're going to discuss, if we are in the end times now, or if that's coming, all of what that means. Right. We're going to trip and fall. So I'll do that for sure. When I was teaching at high school, people would mess up, and I'd say very nicely, okay, please don't do that, and I'd explain. But they'd mess up again, and I'd say, if you do that, you're going to get in trouble. So be careful. They'd mess up again, and I'd explain, here's what's going on. Here's why you're messing up. So let me try to help you not mess up again, because you're going to get in trouble for this. They'd mess up again. I'd say, okay, this is kind of your last warning. And then they'd mess up again, and finally, judgment would come, and they would not complain. Because I had told them 10 times, right? The class never complained. The class, in fact, they were waiting for it. A lot of them were saying, "Get him, Mr. Griffin," because I had kept warning them, and I very patiently explained and very patiently explained. So when they finally get in trouble, the class was like, "Yeah, that's right." And even the person goes, "Yeah, I deserve it." I never got in trouble like other teachers would. Never got those phone calls. "Ooh, Mr. Griffin, he's so mean. He just doesn't like me." Because clearly I like him. No one ever said, "He doesn't like me, that's why he's..." That's kind of the famous thing for students to do with teachers. Yeah. Well, the reason I got in trouble is she just doesn't like me. No one ever said that. Because I was merciful so much that they couldn't tell that lie. That didn't pop into their head. God does the same thing with us. We will not complain on judgment day. No one can sit here, "Well, I never heard, he never told me, Jesus, I never heard that name before in my life." That's not possible. People will just all say, "Yes, amen, I deserve it." Because his mercy is so long and extensive, and he sends us so many warnings, so many warnings, so many warnings. This is kind of what the book of Revelation is about, it's what it's for, so that we will understand and know exactly what's coming, how long, how it's going to happen, so that we can't complain about it. So after the vision explaining the 4 churches, John has a second vision. Let's look at Revelation chapter 4, read the first 2 verses.
After these things I looked, and behold, a door standing open in heaven. And the first voice which I heard was like a trumpet speaking with me, saying, "Come up here, and I will show you things which must take place after this."
So I emphasize that because sometimes people have visions and an angel appears right in front of them. In this case, John was taken up to heaven to look out over kind of to see things the way that God sees. So it wasn't a vision just for John, where an angel's talking just to him. He said, "You need to come up here, and I need to show you the world history as it's about to unfold." Go ahead.
Immediately I was in the spirit, and behold, a throne set in heaven, and one sat on the throne.
So there's the Father God sitting on the throne.
Around the throne were 24 thrones, and on the thrones I saw 24 elders sitting, clothed in white robes, and they had crowns of gold on their heads.
So this talks about 24 elders. When John has a vision of heaven, or whenever Ezekiel had a vision of heaven, or anybody had a vision of heaven, there were 12 gates, and each of them were named for one of the apostles, one of the 12 tribes of Israel. And so that represented the totality of the Jewish people. So for Reuben, Issachar, Joseph, Judah, each of them, and it's not like they're the only ones that get to go to the gate. It's saying to the Jewish people, whatever you come from, doesn't matter which tribe you come from, you get to walk in. So that nobody feels, and they're all equal, all the gates are equal, so that nobody feels like, oh, it's just for that person. We sometimes have a hierarchy in the church. Oh, this is for the deacons. It gives the impression, oh, that's just for the pastor. That's just for, that's sometimes how we arrange things, and we feel like we're back here. Only those special people get to go to the podium, or only those special people get to. But that's not how God does things. So all 12 gates, that's to let all the Jewish people know that all the children of Israel, and this gentleman is going to make me distinguish between the Jewish people and the children of Israel, because there is a distinction. All the children of Israel know that this is for all of you. Then it says the foundations. There are 12 foundation stones, and those are named after the apostles. Now the apostles, they're reaching the Gentile world. And so they're the foundation stone for the new order, for the new age, where the Gentiles are being preached the gospel. And we're to know that no matter when we received it, no matter how we got it, we're like the line of the apostles. We're here because one apostle preached to somebody, who preached to somebody, who preached to somebody, who finally got the word to us. So heaven is for everybody. Whether you're the original chosen people or whether you're in the part of the new age, it's for everybody. And so they call it the 24 elders. That's to let us know it's inclusive of everybody. So we'll see the number 12 and the number 24 a lot in the book of Revelation, and that's talking about all of us. 7 tends to represent God's complete work. 12 tends to represent all of us. Whenever you see the number 12, that means that whole group. So there were 24 elders there representing the apostles and the disciples, saying, however you came in, you have a representative there, and so you're included. Now in Revelation chapter 4, verse 6 and 7.
Before the throne there was a sea of glass.
I'm sorry, I forgot one thing. It says they were clothed in white robes, talking about going right back up to the previous verse. They were clothed in white robes and they had crowns of gold on their heads. It says later on that they would take off their crowns and lay them at the feet of Jesus. The reason they had crowns is because it represents their rewards for faithful service. And we'll all receive a crown, a reward for what we've done for Christ. However, we will just lay them at his feet because we were only able to do them because of him. So he gets the reward. And so we don't have to worry, because sometimes people will think, well, I didn't become a Christian until late in life, and this person's been a Christian, so they're going to get more rewards than me. And that can cause us to feel, you know, I haven't done enough. This person's out of the in the world, I won't even know. And that's not how God looks at it. The whole reason he gave the parable of the workers, one was called at 12 o'clock to go out and work, one was called at 1, one was called at 2, one was called at 3. They're all called at different times. But when it came time for their pay, they all received the same pay. Because it didn't matter if you've been working this long or this long, you get the same reward. God doesn't reward somebody, well, you did more than this person. That's not how God's looking at it. So we're all going to get the same reward, and we'll just lay them at his feet. We're not going to walk, no one gets to walk around heaven. Well, I got 10 crowns, only got 2. We won't have any crowns once we walk in the door, because everything belongs to Jesus. Now, you were reading verse 6, Revelation 4.
Before the throne there was a sea of glass like crystal, and in the midst of the throne and around the throne were 4 living creatures full of eyes in front and in back. The first living creature was like a lion, the second living creature like a calf, The third living creature had a face like a man. And the fourth living creature was like a flying eagle.
So this is all symbolism. This all represents stuff to us. Again, like saying God was a lamp unto our feet. He's not literally a lamp. He's not literally a lamp. God is not a flashlight with a battery. But it says that he was a shepherd. He's not literally a shepherd. It just represents something to us. It just represents something to us. So, first of all, the sea of glass. The sea represents, when we see it in the Revelation, it represents people. It represents people. The fact that it was so smooth, it was like glass, represents peace. The peace that will be there, that because these people have finally overcome, they've arrived, and it was so smooth. If you've ever taken a rafting trip, or I have a white friend who's trying to get me to take a rafting trip, because that's what they do.
Yeah, they do.
But I'm not going. But I've gone up, and sometimes the water is so peaceful and calm, it's just gorgeous. And this is the sort of thing, they say it was like glass. It was like glass, it was so peaceful. So all the people around the throne. Again, you've got the 24 elders, representing the apostles, and the children of Israel. And then you've got everybody else who's there that's just so tranquil because they've overcome. There's no more war, there's no more heartache, there's no more struggle, all the stuff we're going through is gone. But then there's four creatures around the throne. These four creatures represent the Messiah. They represent Christ. So there's a lion, a calf, a man, and an eagle. They represent the four different ways that the Messiah presented himself, the four different ways that he reaches us. So I'll explain. In 4 ways. The lion represents his kingliness and the fact that he came and he fulfilled all of these prophecies as the king. So he represents his royalty, how he rules us, how we are his servants. So he is a king. The calf, this actually translated, the word is actually bull. And everywhere that the word bull is used in the Old Testament, it's in reference to sacrifice. We always talk about the lamb that was brought in, but mostly they brought in bulls. They had a barbecue on sacrifice day. When they came in to do the atonement, they bring a calf and a bull in and sacrifice that. That's all we're talking about. They had a really big barbecue. And so that represents the Messiah not coming as king, who's our ruler that we obey, but coming as servant who's sacrificing for us. Both things were true. Jesus was king and servant all at the same time. Then there was a man. One of the four living creatures had the face of a man, because we need to know that he can be touched with our sorrows, that he can represent us. So, and this is the four ways, again, that he was reaching us. He's reaching us as king, he's reaching us as servant, he's reaching us with somebody who knows all that we've been through, who's gone through the same things that we've gone through. So you can relate to him because he's your ruler, we can relate to him because he died for us as our servant, or we can relate to him because he knows us, he knows what we've been through, and he's that man. He came as someone who's not mysterious, but as someone that we can know. And finally, the eagle represents him in his supernatural power. So, as a king, we're obedient to him. The Israelites understood king. We understand president. We understand that this is the person I have to obey. But the eagle represents the rescuer, that he is, the supernatural rescuer that he is. The eagle, if you saw the Hobbit movies, Lord of the Rings, you don't have to have. But if you were in trouble, you hope for that eagle to come down and you would grab you and you'd ride above the whole war, right?
Yeah.
It's that kind of image. He's that supernatural power that can come in and rescue us and take us away from all the problems we're being attacked. And so these are the 4 ways that he represented himself to us. So there's 4 living creatures there. When Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are ministering, they minister in 4 different ways. Matthew represented Jesus as king. He is the king who was going to come and fulfill all these prophecies. And so if you are looking for, did Jesus do this to fulfill this prophecy? If you want to read somebody who's Jewish, you take them to the book of Matthew. Because every chapter, it says that he did this to fulfill this prophecy, he did this to fulfill that prophecy. He's trying to reach the Jews to show how he is the king that was promised. Luke is reaching the man, the thinker. And so every time Jesus gave a parable, he's reaching the Greeks. Luke was partly Greek, and that's who he's trying to reach. And so he is, if what captures your mind is, it's got to make sense logically to you. It has nothing to do with the prophecies, but it has to do with, this person has a philosophy that you can live your life by. You go to Luke, because all the parables Jesus was explaining, here's how the kingdom of God works, here's how the kingdom of God works, and it was more to be discussed. So there are parables in Luke that are not in anywhere else, not in Mark, not in John, not anywhere else. Because Luke remembered everything that Jesus said, and he was reaching the Greeks because the Greeks need a good argument. Some people are like that. I'm a thinker, so the Bible has to make sense to me. Some people are more impressed by the fact that God can predict something's going to happen 500 years in advance. See how this prophecy happened, and that prophecy happened, and that prophecy happened. And so, but some people, they want to have discussions about God. And so Luke was reaching the man. Mark is writing to the Romans because the Romans are interested in power. So in Mark, there are all kinds of Jesus did this and healed this person, healed that person, healed this person, because that was going to impress the Romans. And also the fact that Mark is more emotional than the other books, and that it showed Jesus as the servant. So Mark shows Jesus as the servant who's helping this person and that person and this person and that person. Look who he was and look what he did for humanity. And then John is reaching our spirits. John is written to the Christian. Mark's written to the Roman. Matthew's written to the Jew. Luke is written to the Greek. But John was written to the Christian. And there are all these spiritual truths. I am the true vine, and you are the branches. There are all these spiritual truths in the book of Mark, in the book of John, because he's talking directly to our spirit. And so there are 4 ways that God reaches us. Either we are impressed by how he's over our destiny. He's over our destiny, that where he already has it designed. He knows in advance what's going to happen to us. He gives us warning, and we're impressed by the fact that God, how things work out in our lives. That you're able to recognize, look how Jesus worked this out. Look how God worked this out. He's really someone who sees in advance, and he knows what's going to happen tomorrow or the next day and 5 years from now. We can look back and say, wow, it wasn't a coincidence that I ran into that person 2 weeks ago, because now I called them up and they're helping with this situation, and look how God is arranging that. So that's a ministry. That's a way to minister to some people. They'll be impressed by understanding how God has a design for your life. But some people are reached by the fact that God knows us. He's the man. So not the king, but the man.
Yes, he is.
And he knows how we feel about things. And he knows our hearts. And when we're burdened, and when we're troubled, and you can reach Christians that way. And so the 4 evangelists each attack a different way. God wants to reach our minds. So some people you will sit and have this, you'll be able to get them saved by having discussions and it's explaining logically. This is why we know that God created the universe. All this didn't come from nothing. You're trying to say that this was just a little atom and it just exploded and it became a universe? That doesn't make any sense. And so if you're earnest, you study all that so you can have logical discussions. That's how to reach some people, based on just logically reaching it. And other people you reach spiritually. And so these 4 living creatures that are in front of the throne represent the 4 ways that God reaches us, His ministry, whether it's touching our hearts, our minds, our spirit, or simply controlling our destiny. Now these 4 creatures have 4 faces, and they're full of eyes, and they're looking in every direction. So, but let's talk about, Ezekiel saw the same vision of these 4 creatures, and the reason why God is showing us, when we go to heaven, know it's for everybody. Again, that's what the 24 elders are about. Know it's for everybody. That's what the 12 gates are about, the 12 foundations. But also know that God is reaching us in every way that He can. And that's what the 4 creatures represent. And in Ezekiel, he has a similar vision. So read Ezekiel chapter 1, verse 4 through 5 and verse 10.
And I looked, and behold, a whirlwind was coming out of the north. A great cloud with raging fire engulfing itself, and brightness was all around it and radiating out of its midst, like the color of amber out of the midst of fire. Also from within it came the likeness of 4 living creatures.
So this big cloud obviously is the presence of God, right? They imitated this when they created the Wizard of Oz. Now here's something interesting. A lot of the writers in early Hollywood were Jewish. They grew up on the scriptures. So a lot of imagery from early Hollywood actually is from the scriptures.
Amen.
Superman is Moses. You know that, right? Superman was put in a basket and shipped off to earth, just like Moses was put in a basket and shipped off to Egypt. That wasn't a coincidence. It was a Jewish writer who created that. And so a lot of the imagery from early Hollywood. So if you watch The Wizard of Oz, when he's trying to scare them, and he's this, the wizard himself, right? It's this big cloud, and you see his face appear, and it's thunders and lightning and all that. They read Ezekiel. So if you grew up on those scriptures, hearing them in the temple all the time, and you go down and start writing, you just borrow from that. So just imagine this big cloud of thunders and lightning and a whirlwind coming. We know that's God. But from out of it, it said, came these 4 creatures. Ezekiel's. So this is the 4 personalities of God. And they use the number 4 because we always talk about the 4 corners of the earth. That means He's covering everything, right? And so there's 4 living creatures. So go ahead and keep reading. Also from within,
it came the likeness of the 4 creatures, and this was their appearance. They had the likeness of a man.
Right.
As for the likeness of their faces, each had the face of a man. Each of the 4 had the face of a lion on the right side. Each of the 4 had the face of an ox on the left side. And each of the 4 had the face of an eagle.
So imagine a creature that has a lion face, an ox face, a man's face, and an eagle face. Right? To a calf? The same word. Sometimes it's just in the Greek, in the New Testament, translated as calf. In the Hebrew, it's translated ox. But it's the same word, and it just means it's that big ox that they would sacrifice. So that represents the servant. So it has 4 faces, and everywhere it looks is the correct direction. We have to turn. Somebody's telling me this way. God doesn't have to turn. God's looking at you no matter where you are. Right? God's not surprised by anything. That's why it's 4 faces. Wow. Eyes all around. God sees everything at all times. Right? And that's what they want to represent to us. That, again, this is representational. They're trying to give them a picture so they understand, because this is before television, movies, and all this. Right? So they have to give the Jewish mind an image so you understand God looks in all directions at all times. And he's the servant, He's the king, He's all these things at once. He doesn't change, I'm in a mood today. He's always all of these things at all times.
So this creature
keep going.
it's like a
face of an eagle. So
fourth
When
beast?
John has this
Was he
vision,
like a
it's
centaur?
reassuring to everybody. Oh, this is the same vision that Ezekiel had 600 years ago. It's that same God. And so they use a lot of the same imagery so that the Jews would understand. It's the same God we've been talking about for hundreds of years. It's not something new. Revelation chapter 4, verse 9 to 11.
Sacrifice.
Whenever the living creatures give glory and honor and thanks to him who sits on the throne, who lives forever and ever.
Say the end part
The
again.
24 elders fall down before him who sits on the throne and worship him, who lives forever and ever. Cast their crowns before the throne,
So
saying,
this is,
You are worthy, O Lord, to receive glory and honor and power. For you created all things, and by you will they exist and were created.
By your will they exist. So the reason, again, we were talking about this earlier. We're all going to get a crown. We're all going to just give them up to Jesus because you created everything and they only exist by your will and you did it all and we deserve none of the credit. So cool that you gave me a crown, but it really belongs to you. So that's, again, the 24 elders represent all of us. The First Chronicles chapter 24 verse. There's another reason why it's 24. But again, it represents the 12 disciples who are the ones who reached us. They represent the 12 tribes. Those are the ones who reached the Jews. So everybody's welcome, Jew and Gentile. He uses the number 24, though, a lot in the Bible. It just represents everybody. In First Chronicles, there were 24 divisions of priests. So let's look at First Chronicles 24, verse 1 through 4.
Now these are the divisions of the sons of
So
Aaron.
we know Aaron was the first priest, right? Go ahead.
The sons of Aaron were Nadab, Abihu,
Eleazar.
Eleazar, and Ithamar.
Right. Go on.
And Nadab and
Abihu.
died before their father and had no children. Therefore, Eleazar and Ithamar ministered as priests.
So Aaron had 4 sons. 2 of them died. Remember what happened to Nadab and Abihu? And strange fire. They tried to get the glory for themselves. And so they kind of faked some fire so that they, oh, look, see, God anointed me too. But God doesn't share his glory with anybody else. So we just have to always be careful. If you're anointed, marvelous. If you're not anointed, don't fake it. Don't try to get the glory and the attention on you. Whatever we're doing is for the glory of God. Because he won't share it. He'll just snuff out your candle. You'll still go to heaven, but you won't have any more chance here on earth to try to steal God's glory. So that's what happened to 2 of Aaron's sons, who were priests, but were trying to get the attention for themselves. So now he only has 2 sons left. One son had 16 kids, the other one had 8. No television, no movies. That's right. That's all I'm saying. That's right. Okay. So, verse 3. Then David,
the Zadok of son of Eleazar and Ahimelech of the sons of Ithamar, divided them according to the schedule of their service.
when there was only one priest, it was easy. He went in and out. But if you imagine having 24 pastors in the church, you have to divide it up. Who's going to go in? You get first Sunday in March, you get first Sunday in April, you get, right? There are 24 sons to deal with, and they have to decide who gets what week. They each got a week. They each ministered twice a year, so which would be 48 weeks. And then for 3 weeks, they would all minister together on those 3 special days. Now, the Jewish calendar only had 51 weeks a year, and then every so often, they would just add a month in, an extra month, to make up for the 4 weeks. We do the same thing on leap year, we add an extra day. So we go ahead and do 52 weeks a year, and we just add an extra day to get us right back on schedule every 4 years. They would do 51 weeks a year, and then every 4 years, they'd add an extra month to make up for those 4 weeks that were missing. So each of the 24 priests ministered twice a year, and then for those 3 special days, the week of atonement, the week of whatever, the festival of feast, the festival of something else, Pentecost, they all would go in and minister together. Those were the big days. Okay, so we're going to keep, so there were more leaders found, I guess verse 4.
Yeah, there were more leaders found in the sons of Eleazar than of the sons of Ithamar, and thus they were divided. Among the sons of Eleazar were 16 heads of their fathers' houses, and 8 heads of their fathers' houses among the sons of Ithamar.
Right, so one son, Eleazar had 16 sons, the other one had 8. So there's 24 of them, and so they divided it up that way. So 24 also represents, again, the complete us. 24 is just a number. So when we see 12 in the book of Revelation, or we see 24, just know that means everybody. That means all the priests or all of us. Okay, here's an example. So don't forget that you only get, if you're a priest, you get 2 weeks out of the year. So if anything special is going to happen, you kind of hope that it happens in your day. When we read Luke chapter 1, verse 5 and 8 through 9, here's an example of a priest who just, okay, no problem. An example of a priest who just happened to be there on the right day.
When the days of Herod Judea, a certain priest named Zechariah, of the division of
Abijah. Right.
His wife was of the daughters of Aaron, and her name was Elizabeth. So it was that while he was serving as priest before God in the order of his division, according to the custom of the priesthood, his lot fell to burn incense, and he went into the temple.
So remember, Zechariah is Elizabeth's husband. That's what it says in order of his division. There were 24 divisions. And so he happened to, his week came up to serve, and he walked in the temple. An angel appeared to him. The angel was sitting there, like when you're late, and said, "You're about to have a child." And he said, "No, I'm not. I'm smarter than you. I know more than God. No, I'm not." This is what we do. God will say something to us, and we'll think, "That's crazy. That can't be God." And we argue with God. And so that's when he shut him up, and he was mute. He came outside, and they wanted to name the child after him. He said, "No." He tried to have in mind the whole thing. Name it after, do what she says, because I don't know what I'm talking about. So just that's what it means, the order of his division. It just happened to be the week he was going in, that an angel was sitting there waiting for him. So it's okay if you have to divide stuff up sometimes. God will still meet you on your time. You know what I mean? It's like, well, that's not fair, I have to share. It's okay.
I have to share.
It's okay. All right. So now we're back to Revelation verse 5, verse 1 through 3.
And I saw in the right hand of him who sat on the throne a scroll written inside and in the back, sealed with 7 seals.
So this scroll, I will just tell you in advance, contains the history of the world. It's written on the inside and the back. So normally a scroll is folded up, right? A scroll.
Yeah.
Now they only had scrolls, they didn't have books. We have books and magazines and stuff. They had scrolls. So it's the book of history. But it's written on the inside. You can tell. Normally it's only written on the inside. But they can tell it's written on the back and the front because there was writing in the back. So even though they hadn't opened it up yet, they could tell that it was written on the inside and the back. Why is it written on the inside and the back? Why is it written on both sides? Guesses? Huh? Well, why is this written on both sides?
Same paper.
Huh?
You are.
Sorry, same paper. But let's say I wasn't saying paper. Huh?
More
Be less, because God doesn't have a lot of money. Okay, so nothing can be added to it. This is it. This is the full history. So that we'll know there's nothing more to be had. When they unroll it, it's not like, oh, we can write on the back, we're going to add some more. It was totally full in the back, totally full in the front. So as they're unrolling it, he can see that it was completely full. This is the entire history. There's nothing to be added or taken away from. Right? There's nothing, you can't squeeze anything else in. It's totally full. So scrolls, again, normally when they wrote their scrolls, they're writing the Old Testament, the New Testament, and one person would copy down, and then somebody else would copy some more, and there was always room to write more on these scrolls. But if you see that it's totally full, the message is, you cannot write any more on that scroll. It's full. So it's full on, so God's saying this is it. When I open this up, there's nothing more to be added to this. So I'm just again saying in their culture, an empty scroll means you could add to it. A full one means done. Okay, so looking at the scroll, it's but it's sealed. But anyway, so it's sealed, and there's 7 seals on it. So you unloose a little bit of the scroll, and you can read this much. Then you unloose another scroll, and you can read this much. Right? There's 7 seals. So you have to unloose each seal in order to read the whole thing. Break the seal in order to read the whole thing. You just break the first seal, you're only going to get this much. So you can see there are 7 seals. Now in the book of Revelation, there are the 7 sealed warnings. There are the 7 trumpet judgments. There are the 7 vials or bowls judgments. So it's always 7, which means this is the complete work that God's going to do. 7 means this is. So this is everything. You have to wonder, what else is God going to do? This. Short answer. So we're about to go through the 7 seals this week. Then we'll begin to go through the 7 trumpets, the 7 things. Just know that he's giving a preview of coming attractions. Here's everything basically that's going to happen. Then he's going to zoom in the coming weeks on just the day of judgment. The day of judgment is coming. And he's going to tell you how to recognize it, what's all going to happen so that we'll know. So I want to get, if this was a class of doctors, you're all studying to be doctors, right? And I'm teaching the class. At a certain point, I will have taught everything. Now the teacher is ready to give you the test. I cannot pass, you cannot go on and become a doctor unless you pass the test. If you can't pass the test, I can't allow you to be a doctor. And so it's either pass or fail. That God has said, here's the test. And it's either pass or fail. And if you cannot pass the test, you can't get into heaven. Wow. If you can't, then you can't. But what the teacher is doing, I'm giving you all the information that you need. I'm giving you everything that you need. If you're paying attention, you'll pass. It's no problem. So at a certain point in the 6th seal, he says, let me find that one person who can pass this test so that I'll know that I've done enough. Have I taught it enough? And he picks one student who's paying attention, gives that one student the test, he gets 100% on it. And he says, okay, now I know that I've given all the information. It's the only way for this person to pass the test. If I gave them all information, if they got 100%, then I'm done. And so now it's time to give everybody else the test. As a teacher, I give warnings, right? Okay, that final exam's coming up in 2 weeks, you better study. Some people will study and take advantage of it, other people won't. When I see people not studying, I give a stronger warning. Hey, come on, don't forget, because this is coming up. You're not going to get in if you don't study. Time gets closer and they're not. So I increase my warnings because I know the test is coming up. I can see by their actions. So I keep sending warnings. I keep sending warnings to shake them up, right? I might give you a test. I might hear it just to show you you're about to fail. It's my job to keep warning you and let you know that this test is coming up. It's about to happen. This is what the 7 seals represent. It's God's warnings to us. To shake us up so we become serious about what's about to happen. So he's sending these warnings out so that we'll go, oh my God, I better study. Again, I would do that on the first day of class. I gave the final so that people would go, wow, this is all that I need to know. I better be paying attention during class because I only got a 20% on this text. Now, I didn't hold them against them. I gave them the final so they would know this is what you have to learn. And so that by the end, they would all get 100 if they studied, if they listened during class and paid attention. But if they're not, I've got to warn you. I've got to shake them up. So God's saying, I'm going to have to shake you up. And these are the 7 sealed warnings that I'm releasing on the earth so that people will get worried, upset, and go, oh my God, I didn't pray, I didn't write, and seek after God. Because the final day of judgment is coming, and then that's it. There's no mercy after that. Right? Once I get this test, you all fail. Sorry, you flunk out. So that's what the 7 seals represent. Now, when I saw, so who is worthy? Revelation chapter 5, verse 1 through 3.
And I saw
And
the
I saw a strong angel proclaiming in a loud voice, "Who is worthy to open the scroll and loose its seals?" And no one in heaven or on earth or under the earth was able to open the scroll or to look at the 12 books, because no one was found worthy to open and loose the scroll. One of the elders said to me, "Do not weep. Behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, has prevailed to open the scroll and to loose its 7 seals."
So I saw a strong angel proclaiming, who is worthy to open the scroll and loose its seals? Who's that one person that has existed in time who's worthy to open this up and release all of this? Now, God cannot release these judgments until it is fair, until it is just. Interestingly enough, these warnings are His mercy. If I'm merciful, I continue to warn you. Hey, this test is coming. This test is coming. That's mercy.
yeah.
To warn, right? The traffic signal turns from green to yellow. It gives me that warning, that caution light to let me know it's about to turn to red. That's the red. The yellow is the mercy. Because if you went from green to red, that wouldn't be fair. Like, wow, I didn't get any warning, it's just suddenly red. So it flashes yellow and then turns red. It's the same thing if you're crossing the street, you know, it starts to blink. Oh, I better hurry up. That's the warning. That's mercy. So the warnings that He's about to give are mercy because judgment is now coming. However, God's saying, I can't release judgment until I know I have done enough. Like the teacher, I can't give them the final until I have taught everything. And it's been really clear. So who is worthy? Who's the one student I can test this on to see, is it time? So I'm looking for someone who's worthy because once they pass, now I can open the seal of these wounds. Now it's done. Judgment, I've set the date for Judgment Day. Like I've set the date for the final, right? It's coming up in 3 weeks. Because now that the person has passed the test, I know I can set the date. So these 3 weeks are 3 weeks of me warning and prodding and sending out my mercy. But He's looking for who's worthy to take the test so I can know if it's been completed. So He says, I wept because no one was worthy. Like no one has lived a life worthy enough. Actually, Jesus was holding back the judgment. God can't send judgment until He knows He's done enough and made the way of escape for us. You can't send judgment until the way of escape's been established, right? The way of passing the test has been established. So, who is worthy to release these warnings for us because Judgment Day is coming? Here's a way that God describes Himself in Jeremiah chapter 9, verse 24.
But let him who glories in glory in this, that he understands and knows me, that I am the Lord, exercising loving kindness, judgment, and righteousness in the earth. For in these I delight, says the Lord.
So He said, if you're going to glory, the first part of the verse says, don't let the rich man glory in his riches, or the wise man glory in his wisdom. If you're going to glory if you understand and know me.
Right.
If you want to brag about something, you say, I know the Lord. But if you know me, you have to understand that I have 3 parts to my personality. I'm not just merciful God. I'm not just judgment God. Some people preach judgment God. He's going to come and some people only preach merciful God. You can have anything you want. Jesus, and He's just one of them. You should understand God and know me that I am all these things. And I execute righteousness, loving kindness, which is mercy, and judgment. That all 3 things are equal. So at the same time I'm issuing mercy, it's because judgment is coming. At the same time I'm judging, please know that I was merciful first. It's all the same to God. And it's all based on His righteousness. If you do what He says, and parents who say, if you just do what I tell you, you won't get in trouble. Right? If you just do it, it's not a problem. You only got in trouble because you disobeyed. You didn't get in trouble like punishing you. I can make that, I'll punish my child for no reason. If you've done what I asked you to do, there'd be no problem. Right? The problem came from the disobedient. But knowing that you're going to mess up, let me prep you in advance and be merciful and say, listen, you're going to stay up all night, and you're not going to want to get up in the morning. So I'm being merciful and explaining to you how you're about to mess yourself up.
Get some rest.
When I come back from work at 8 a.m., this stuff needs to be all locked up and cleaned up. But if you stay up all night, I'm warning you in advance. I'm trying to be merciful to let you know, don't mess up. Get to bed so you can get up and do this that you need to do. Mercy. But it's called, because the judgment is coming. But the righteousness is, I've set the standard. Here's what I want. Righteousness is God revealing exactly what He demands of us. Mercy tries to help us avoid judgment, but judgment is the punishment. I don't even call it punishment, but the discipline for not doing what He said. So He says, you understand me, know that I'm all of that. I'm all of that. So Jesus, in His mercy, is releasing the warnings. Because the scrolls, the 7 seals, are the warnings that God is sending to us to let us know Judgment Day is coming. And in His mercy, He's releasing His warnings so that we can avoid judgment. So we can avoid judgment. But He's all 3 things. So He unleashed the first seal. Go ahead, Revelation chapter 6, verse 1 and 2.
Now I saw when the Lamb opened one of the seals, and I heard one of the 4 living creatures saying with a voice like thunder, "Come and see." And I looked, and behold, a white horse. He who sat on it had a bow and a crown was given to him. And he went out conquering and to conquer.
So, he who sat on it had a bow and a crown, and was given to him, and he went out conquering and to conquer. Revelation 19 describes a similar person on a white horse. Let's read that before we decide who this is.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Why did it say, why do you think it said,
He went out to conquer. Oh,
it was given to him?
that's a good question. I'm about to come to that. That's a good question. So let's examine it. I love people examining the scripture. So there's somebody on a white horse who had a bow and a crown, and it was given to him. And he who sat, and he went out to conquer, he went out conquering and to conquer. I want to read another description of the person on the white horse. Revelation chapter 19.
Now I saw heaven open, and behold, a white horse. And he who sat on him was called Faithful and True, and in righteousness He judges and makes war.
So this one, he's faithful and true. He's not like the first person on the white horse. He's faithful and true. And it goes on to say he had a voice like thunder, and a sword came out of his mouth. And so we know that that's Jesus. This first person on the white horse is not Jesus. It's not Jesus. He just has a bow. He doesn't have a sword. He's not faithful and true. It's given to him for a time period to do a certain thing. He goes out to conquer. And so here's what's being released. Again, God's mercy holds back sin. But now He's releasing the consequences of our disobedience. Because starting with the Garden of Eden, we've been disobedient. We are the fruit that was plucked off the tree, and now we are rotting. But sometimes you can slow down the rotting, and so it doesn't happen as fast. Put it in the refrigerator, and it won't spoil that quickly. We did that yesterday with the food. But eventually it's going to spoil, right? But there are things you can do to preserve it. Now God is removing the preservative and allowing the consequences to come, because that's the only thing that's going to make us repent, is for the consequences to come to us. So He releases that spirit that wants to conquer, and so that desire in us to control other people, to control and to conquer. So starting especially from John's time forward to today, there are more dictators who went out, who started conquering other lands more frequently. In the Old Testament, somebody would come in and conquer, and they'd be there for 300 years. And then the next king would rise, and they'd be there for 400 years. And the next in line would be there for 100 years. In our day, 5 years later, we have another war. 10 years later, we have another war. There's a Hitler, then there's a Mussolini, right? That desire to conquer and control other people has been released. It's our own sin, and that same desire to conquer and control that original desire to be in control that the devil had. I'll exalt my throne above the Most High God. Even going up and approaching Adam and Eve. Well, did God say, He just afraid you in that if you eat that fruit, you'll be like gods and do no good. Ooh, I want to be like God. I want to control, right? I want that. And so he's released, that first thing gets released. So that people are colonized. They are made slaves. So, and so that spirit of oppression is released. Interesting enough, this is God's mercy. If it's not released, we don't look up and cry out to him. Lord, send you, help me. This person is conquering me. This person is controlling my life, my nation, my country. We need you, right? If that doesn't happen, we just do our own thing. It's from God's mercy to us releasing that first horse throughout history, right? Especially starting, that first horse is being released. Now he releases the second horse, the second seal. I would call it the desire to destroy.
When he opened the second seal, I heard the second living creature saying, "Come and see." Another horse, fiery red, went out, and it was granted to the one who sat on it to take peace from the earth, and that people should kill one another. And there was given to him a great sword.
So he's releasing what's already there. It was only his mercy holding it back. Now, the desire for war, the desire to destroy one another. Interestingly enough, you think back, you know where germ warfare comes from, and when they start using gas on people? They decided we should stop destroying buildings. We should just kill people. What are we thinking? So that's why they came up with the gas and stuff, and then we all were like, oh, how horrible. Because, yes, sir.
I was going to mention, there were actually rules to war.
Yes.
And eventually they just decided to do away with, like if you were in war, it was like a rule that you shouldn't do this or you shouldn't do that.
Right.
And it was agreed on both sides.
But at a certain point, they just let that go. Because you went in and you bombed a couple facilities, a couple buildings, and people gave up. Okay, we give in. And they said, well, we're stupid. Because when they go, we're going to have to rebuild that country. Let's stop bombing buildings. Let's just kill people. So they released these germ warfare. They released these gases, some poison gases. And that way, only the people die. The buildings are still okay. That's a different spirit. Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, that was the purpose of the neutral bomb also.
Right. So that fiery red horse is released, which is just the desire just to kill people, not to control them, but to kill them. Right? You may want a bunch of slaves, but you want them all alive so they can, make your cotton stuff, so that they can make your wheat and your tobacco and stuff like that, right? But the desire to kill them all is a different desire. It's a different horse, right? So there's a desire to control people, to conquer that first white horse. But then I'm also releasing desire just to take peace from the earth so people want to kill each other.
That's the same difference as what.
But we're not going to reach on. I'm only going to talk about. I'm with you, but think that in your heart, and then I'm just going to go on. But okay, so. Third seal. Oh, yes?
So is one horse that's really being released, or is it going to be 7 horses that's going to be?
Well, that's actually 4 horses, but there's 7 seals. So
I'm sorry, so it's 4 horses, never mind.
Yes, 4 horses. Then there's other things that are being released.
All right.
So I'm just differentiating between the desire to conquer is different than the desire to kill people. Okay, third seal. Desire to control Earth's resources.
When he opened the third seal, I heard the third living creature say, "Come and see." So I looked, and behold, a black horse, and he who sat on it had a pair of scales in his hand. And I heard a voice in the midst of the 4 living creatures say, "A quart of wheat for a denarius, and 3 quarts of barley for a denarius, and do not harm the oil and the wine."
So this is releasing poverty, and now I control the oil, or I control the water, I control the food, and you're going to have to pay me money in order to live. So that desire to control Earth's resources, that's natural in man when we're apart from God, right? When we desire control. So there's desire to control people. There's also just desire to control the resources. So you're gonna have to pay me a lot of money. So now I'm gonna make this a hamburger cost $55. Oh, you can't pay it, too bad, right? That desire to control Earth's resources. So not that we're all sharing and based on, you work, I work, we all share. Like, no, I want it all. And you'll have to pay, and if you starve to death, that's too bad. That's too bad. So that's a different desire that was being held back. But it's being released again as a warning to us. Lord, I'm starving, I'm poor, so that we'll call on him, because people are not calling on him. Going back to Babylon, they decided, the Tower of Babel, we're going to build a tower to God. We're going to be our own God. And so the spirit that God is always fighting is the spirit where we don't need him. And so he has to make us need him. Does that make sense? So it's the same spirit. If I'm giving a test, you don't think you have to study. I got to make you think you have to study. I have to do whatever I can, whatever warning, whatever quizzes I have to give, so you go, oh my God, so that you'll study. Because you don't think you need it. You think, oh, I'm fine, I don't need to study, right? You went to school with people, or you maybe one of them. Who? I don't need to study that. Yes, you do. I don't need to know that. Yet you need to know that if you're going to be a doctor. You need to know that. You don't understand. You won't get in. You're going to fail the test. I can't let you be a doctor if you don't know this. And so he's saying, I can't let you be in heaven if you don't know Jesus. And so I got to create in you the need to call out to him. So I'm going to release the evil that you already have. I'm actually holding back. I'm going to let you see how evil you are. It's the same that the father of the prodigal son did. You think you know what you're doing, you don't. So I'm going to let you go out there and eat with the pigs. And then you'll go, oh, my father's house. And you'll want to come back. So letting us fail, letting us see our true selves and how helpless we are and hopeless we are without him is merciful. Because then we'll go, oh. So letting us fall flat so that we say, I need you, Jesus. Because we weren't saying that when we were drunk or when we were in a gang, or we weren't saying, I need you vodka. I'm making that vodka. But anyway, so now you're saying, I need you, Jesus. Now you fall on their face. Yes, sir.
Jesus said, do not burn the oil or the wine is the letter.
Right.
That's well.
Right. Exactly. That's a good interpretation of that. Yes, sir. Right. Yes, ma'am. Oh, that was the Roman money. It was a day's wage.
A day's wage.
A day's wage in Rome. So your home, you work for 8 hours a day. It's going to cost all that to buy that piece of that hammer. So yeah, a day's wage is called a denarius. So the fourth seal and the fourth horse of the apocalypse.
When he opened the fourth seal, I heard the voice of the fourth living creature saying, come and see. So I looked, and behold, a pale horse. The name of him who sat on it was Death, and Hades followed with him. The power was given to him over the fourth of the earth, to kill with sword, with hunger, with death, and by the beasts of the earth.
So death is being released over the earth. Famine, pestilence, disease is being, so people will, again, this is the judgment that we deserve for rejecting God. Yes?
But isn't like the first, the second, and the third horses? It's like this.
It's like combined in the fourth. Right. And adding in even more disease and pestilence. Yes. So death is just being released. Now, one is coming from man's desire to conquer. I want to conquer you. I want to make you poor. I want to kill you. This is just like disease and famine that's released in some countries, right? It's pestilence, disease, along with all the rest of it. But this is not coming necessarily from man. This is also coming, in addition to that, it just comes from natural disasters, etc., and that are coming on the earth. So when the earthquake happens, sometimes the first thing, oh Jesus, oh look, we call out immediately, right? And a tornado's coming, people will hit their knees and start praying. So some natural disasters are there as the warning. Please call out to me, because you're not seeking me. You're seeking things, you're seeking fame, fortune, other people, but you're not seeking me, and I need you to seek me. If you knock, I'll answer. But there's a whole millions of people on the earth who are not seeking after God. They don't care anything about Him. And so things have to be released because the day of judgment is coming. And you're going to end up in hell for eternity. So what do I have to do to make you call out? And this is, again, the judgment that comes from rejection. Because the time is drawing near. These warnings weren't there at the beginning of the class I was teaching in medicine. Now that I know when the final is coming, they're all about to fail. Now the warnings increase. Okay, so the fifth seal.
When he opened the fifth seal, I saw under the altar the souls of those who had been slain for the word of God and for the testimony which they held. And they cried with a loud voice, saying, How long, O Lord, holy and true, until you judge and avenge your blood on those who dwell on the earth? And a white robe was given to each of them, and it was said to them that they should rest a little while longer, until both the number of their fellow servants and their brethren who would be killed as they were was complete.
So don't turn the page in, I'm sorry. I meant to make the point that earlier it says power is given over a fourth of the earth to kill and destroy. As we read further, it'll say it's in a third of the earth. It's going to say half the earth. It's going to say the whole earth.
Wow.
So the judgment and the intensity of the judgment will increase. It's going to increase as we go. So the fifth seal, now this is the history of what has happened from the time that God was on this island to today. That there's been more conquering, there's been more death, there's been more wars. Jesus said there'll be wars and rumors of war and earthquakes and all this stuff, but the end's not even yet. And he was specifically talking about the judgment that's coming in the temple, but that was a preview of the bigger judgment that's coming on the world. So we can extrapolate from everything Jesus said, the same sort of warnings will come upon us. And that's what John is seeing. They roll it out. The opening of the scroll of history, when we look over the past 2,000 years, we see people conquering one another at a more increasing rate. We see more wars, more death, and more martyrs of people who have been killed. But they're even saying, how long until the judgment comes? Because there is that day that we have to take the final exam. That judgment day is coming. How long? And say, well, not yet. It's not yet because I'm giving them time to repent. But at a certain point, it'll be complete. And he's going to say, that's it. He's going to roll up the scroll and roll up history. And history won't exist anymore. If that makes any sense. The forward movement will, And so he's unveiling the scroll and releasing these judgments to wake us up. Now, let's look at the sixth seal. I call it natural disaster.
I looked when he opened the fifth seal, and behold, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became like blood. And the stars of heaven fell to the earth, and the fruit tree drops its late figs, and is shaken by a mighty wind. Then the sky receded as a scroll, and it is rolled up, and every mountain and island was moved out of its place. And the kings of the earth, the great men, the rich men, the commanders, the mighty men, every slave and every free man, hid themselves in the caves and in the rocks of the mountains, and said to the mountains and rocks, Fall on us and hide us from the face of him who sits on the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb. For the great day of his wrath has come, and who is able to stand?
So before the day of judgment comes, that last time period where the day of God's wrath has come, we'll see more natural disasters. And so these are figurative terms, the sky, the moon turning to blood, and the stars fall in the skies, and earthquakes. You'll see there'll be more signs in the heavens that something's going on. There'll be more tornadoes and floods and fires and all the stuff that seems to be happening now. Doesn't mean that he's about to come tomorrow, but this is the sort of type of thing where we're just going to see it on a more increased basis. Like, wow, there's been more rock slides and more, it'll be like the stars are falling from the sky. This is just John using figurative language, poetic language to describe all these natural disasters, because now it's done. I've enslaved you so you cry out. I've allowed others to enslave you. I've allowed people to exert their influence over you and with poverty and all these other things. There's been disease, there's been all these other war, so that you'll cry out to me, because that's really what he needs. But there are people who still won't, who look at other things going on and go, well, that's just natural. And, you know, people are just greedy. And they won't cry out and say, Lord, because they just refuse to believe there is a God. He says, but now the day of his wrath is coming. And so there's a time period that is the day of his wrath. And we've been seeing an increase of it. Now, it may increase more, so this will be 100 years from now. Or it can be 10 years from now. Yes, sir.
Just in the past several years, and you've heard all these blood moons, all I'm saying is that got a lot of people to start to think again, to start wondering about all these things. Not that it's happening, but it's that these problems get to this, say, ooh, what's going on?
Right. You know, those people who will do that. And again, unfortunately, there's a lot of people who don't, who always ascribe everything to some natural reason. There's got to be a reason for it. They just don't want to think it's God. But it's on purpose. The intensity is being turned up on purpose to get our attention, because the day of his wrath is coming. That's a time period. Some people think it's a 7-year period. That's called the day of his wrath. It's not a literal 24-hour day. But and he's going to tell specifically what's going to happen. When this nation's going to march, and that nation and this Antichrist will rise, there's a certain set of things that will happen. That's the day of his judgment. So everything else is leading up to it. So that when it happens, when the Antichrist, when the Messiah, the Antichrist, the fake Messiah appears, we'll recognize it because we've been looking at all the signs. So if the teacher's been warning and warning and warning, and then you see him opening his roll book and there's a stack of papers in his hand, go, okay, that's the final. You know, it's about to happen. If you haven't been paying attention, you're not, oh, what's this, another 10? Oh, no, it's the final. No, I should have studied. Yeah, you should have, but it's too late. The final's here now. You should have recognized the signs, like we tell you every day it's coming. Right? So he's not going to tell you specifically the exact day, but we should be able to recognize the signs. And as the lightning comes out of the east and shines to the west, you won't miss it if you're looking. And Jesus said, we recognize that it's going to rain, you know when the clouds are coming. So he says, in that same way, if you're looking, you'll know that it's coming. So this book of Revelations is his blueprints for us to recognize when God's day of judgment is coming. So we are Romans chapter 8, verse 9 through 22.
Well, the earnest expectation of the creation eagerly waits for the revealing of the sons of God.
So God's creation is waiting for this moment. Because the day of judgment is two things. People are going to pass the test, right? And become doctors, I'm just making that up. And people are going to flunk. Two things are going to happen. So we're excited. If you study, you can't wait to take the test. Yay, because I've been waiting to become a doctor. And I'm sitting here in this class and I'm wondering how long, Lord, because I'm taking this class so I can become a doctor. So yay, finally the test is coming so I can pass. If you would not study, it's a dreadful day. That's the day you're going to flunk. So creation has been waiting for the revealing of the sons of God, for that day when, yay, that waiting for graduation day. Creation was affected, God's creation, when we sinned, creation began to rot. And God's explaining that when we have earthquakes happen and things going on, it is the earth, it's like birth pains of a woman in labor, waiting for that baby to finally come out. And so the shaking that's going on is because creation is about to be clothed with a new heaven and a new earth. And so it's like the chicken pegging its way out of the egg, right? And that's what creation is going on. That's what's happening when we see these signs, is because all of this is changing. And earth is in tune with God. Earth is not a separate thing from God. Flowers blooming, the oceans and how they move, that's all part of God's creation. So the earth knows that it's coming to an end. So that's why the shaking is going on, because every time these faults move and things happen, it's like it's ready to burst open so that the new creation can happen. So that's what he's telling us in Romans chapter 8. For the creation, verse 20. Who's reading? Are you reading? Yeah. Romans verse 20. Chapter 8, verse 20.
The creation was subjected to futility, not willingly, but because of him who subjected it in hope.
So it was subjected to futility, meaning it was covered in our sin, and it's not actually functioning in the way that God originally intended for it to function. But not because the creation did anything, not willingly, but because of God who subjected it in hope. Now he's calling it hope. Like your body, you get pregnant, your body's not the same shape it was originally because you got life. But it's a good thing. It's a good thing because now the hope is that one day it'll return to its original form the way God intended for the earth to be.
Yeah, we hope.
Keep going.
We hope.
Thus, creation itself also will be delivered from the bondage of corruption into the glorious liberty of the children of God. For we know that the whole creation groans and labors with birth pains together until now.
Right. So that's how he called it. I'm not just using figurative language. It's birth pains for this new age that's coming. So that's what the shaking is. That's what the volcanoes are slightly. We know that creation is groaning. It's the birth pains of this new age. So these natural disasters, again, the day of judgment is coming. Then you find out this is the seventh seal, which is the prelude to the seven trumpets. The seven trumpets are more specifically what's going to happen during that time period. This is just all the warnings leading up to the day of judgment. Revelation chapter 8, verse 1 through 6.
When he opened the seventh seal, there was silence in heaven for about half an hour. And I saw the seven angels who stand before God, and to them were given seven trumpets. Then another angel having a golden censer came and stood at the altar. He was given much incense that he should offer it to the prayers of all the saints upon the golden altar, which was before the throne. And the smoke of the incense and prayers of the saints ascended before God from the angel's hand. Then the angel took the censer, filled it with fire from the altar, and threw it to the earth. And there were noises, thunderings, lightnings, and an earthquake. So the seven angels, with the seven trumpets, prepared themselves to sound.
Right. So there will be a period of mercy right before the day of judgment. We'll have all the earthquakes, all the poverty, all the stuff that's going on, so people will cry out. Now, if you're already crying out, you don't have to go through all that stuff. No. So God's not going to just make you poor, make you, but the disobedient or whatever condition we're in, so that we need to cry out. But then he says there is a space of silence. That's God's mercy. And the prayers, the incense, as you've been to a Catholic service, there's like incense and the smoke and the censer, and it represents their prayers going up to God. So an angel actually takes that up to the throne and then throws it to the earth. Like you need to pray now. Because that's it. Judgment has come. So mercy is over, and now the day of the judgment is about to rise. The seven trumpets, again, seven always complete. Here's what God's going to do. Will be God spelling out specifically what's going to happen during the day, during that time period of God's judgment. And so we'll begin that next week, starting at Revelation chapter, the last part of chapter 8 and chapter 9. Are there any questions? Great. Let's bow our heads.